Hi, my name is James Coursier and thank you for joining us today. And welcome to the Money Paradox podcast. Now, I've got three things I wanted to talk you through today. And the first one is, what is financial freedom? And the reason I start with this is that a lot of people I know are looking to achieve financial freedom, right? They like the idea of it. They would love to be in that place. But how many people actually know what financial freedom is, or has taken time to really think about it in that way? Not many, certainly a lot less than those that are pursuing it. Okay, so the first point I want to raise and encourage you to do is to ask yourself, what is financial freedom to you? Not anybody else, but to you. So think about that, note it down if you can, and start to get a view around that. Okay, now my thoughts on what financial freedom are, okay, to kind of add to your thoughts, is that financial freedom is freedom from financial constraint. So whatever it is that you want from life, whatever it is that you want to achieve, do, create within your life, you want money to not be a restriction in that. Because if it isn't, then you, by definition, are financially free. Free from financial constraint in what you want to have in your life, okay? Now, the big point, and the reason why I frame it like that, is that what people want from their life or in their life varies enormously. So therefore, what needs to happen with each person in terms of, from a financial point of view, is very different, okay? Because it needs to correspond to unlock what it is that they want from their life, nobody else's, okay? And we often get sold these big, glamorous, quite extreme lives when people talk about financial freedom or imagine it. And often that isn't the case. Now, it is for some people. Some people may want these very extravagant lives. They may want to jet around the whole world, traveling every day of the year in their private jet, and be permanent on their holiday, sipping margaritas, being next to a pool, being able to watch TV and wake up late every day and do whatever they want. But the reality is, I don't think most people really want that. And certainly in the people I've worked with, when we go through a process, actually far from it, okay? Most people want fulfillment. They want meaning in their life, okay? They want to be able to create and do and be something that is important to them, that signals meaning and value within their life, right? And so, number one, you need to know that, okay? Or have an idea of that, okay? That's part of this. But number two, often a lot of that doesn't require a lot of money, doesn't require a huge amount of money, okay? It does require some money, and it's important to know what that is, but not a huge amount of money, all right? So understand what financial freedom is for you specifically, okay? Now, the other thing is, financial freedom acts in stages, because what tends to happen is when we get to that first level of whatever we think is financial freedom, and we achieve it, we get close to it, we start to then, our life changes, or what becomes important to us may evolve. And then the goalposts may move, okay? So financial freedom for you may change within your life. It's dynamic, okay? So the first level that I tend to recommend people as a vision to focus on in terms of financial freedom is, what is your current cost of living? How much does it cost for you to maintain your current lifestyle? And if you calculate that, you can do it fairly simply based on how much money you're earning, all right, every month, how much you're saving, and take that off how much you're earning, and that's roughly how much you're spending. If you're currently not saving and you're building up debt, then you would simply add that on, right, the average each month, to what you're earning, and then that would be a rough idea of how much you're spending each month. Then you take that, and that is essentially how much your cost of living is. You take that number, right, if you can fund that amount of money without having to work, okay, you can work if you want to, but if you don't have to work, right, then from my perspective, that is your first level of financial freedom, right? Because at that point, essentially what you do with your time, you have full control over that. You can do whatever is meaningful for you, whatever fulfills you, whatever creates a better life for yourself with the time that you have, rather than being forced into work on a daily basis just to cover the cost of your living. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so if you're struggling with a definition, you want that first level to work towards and have a clear view around, that would be the definition that I would recommend. Okay, feel free to give your own thoughts around what is financial freedom to you and what I've been saying, and give your own suggestions maybe to other people that are watching this and looking at the comments. I'm sure they would love to know, and I definitely would love to know. Okay, now the second item that I wanted to talk through today are the key questions that you want to ask yourself. Now, I am a big fan of asking the right questions, okay? Too often we go into doing mode and trying to chase and achieve something, rather than taking a step back and thinking, what is it that I want? What is it that is important to me? Asking ourselves the right questions, because the questions we ask ourselves highly determine the answers we get, the answers our brain come up with. And that has a huge impact on where our mind goes and the direction in which we travel. Okay? So if you want a better life, you want to ask better questions. And this holds true in all areas of life, and certainly within the area of money. So from a perspective of money and financial freedom, some of the key questions that I think are really important to ask yourself are: one, do you want to be financially free? Sounds an obvious question, but really ask yourself this. And some of these questions, especially the important questions, I want you to hold your hand on your heart, ask yourself these questions, and feel what is the gut view, the gut answer. So do I really want to be financially free? Hold your hand on your heart. And if the answer is an absolutely yes, great. But if there's any kind of doubt there or unsure, and there is some kind of doubt there, you really want to explore that, because that doubt will constantly get in the way of you achieving this, if this is something you want to achieve. Okay? So get really clear on whether you want it in the first place. If there's any doubts there, really work on what those are and look to resolve them, if this is something you want to focus on. The second question is, why do you want to be financially free? Right? Too busy just trying to achieve it, but often don't stop to think why we want it, okay? Because the why is so important. If we don't have a why, there's nothing pulling us towards it. And instead, if we set a goal and we don't have a clear why, what we're using is push tactics, right? We're using drive to get there. And that can work, but it's very draining and doesn't work in the long term, right? Because we run out of energy, it doesn't excite us. So if you want financial freedom to come quicker, easier, and happen in the long term, and rather than just making short-term progress and not actually following through, then what I encourage you to do is to really ask yourself why. What do you think it will give you? List all of those reasons, right? List all of those reasons and look through it, okay? Look through it, get really clear on what is driving you wanting to achieve it. And the bigger that why, the more pull you'll have in achieving financial freedom. Now, this is important. If the why is small, it's just you, then you're a lot less likely to achieve it, because there's not much strength behind it. But if your why is bigger than you, it includes your family, it includes your friends, it includes the world. The bigger it is, the more pull, the more energy, the more force propelling you to achieve it you'll have. Okay? Now, the third question to ask yourself is, what will it give you? Okay, so it's kind of similar. Why do I want it, and what do I think it will give me? So if I become financially free, where will I be? What will I have access to? What opportunities will I have? What difference will I be able to make to my life, my family's life, my friends' life, my community's life, the world, whatever it is, okay? What will it give you if you're able to achieve this? And then lastly, and this is huge, why is it a must? Because if it is a must, there is no whether, there is no if. It needs to happen. And from that place, you will be compelled to achieve it. And your mind will be constantly seeking ways, solutions to be able to get to that place, financial freedom, okay? So if you're asking yourself, is it a must? And it's a maybe or a no, then you're gonna have a hard time getting this. It's simple to achieve financial freedom, but if the answer to this question is no or maybe not, then it's going to be difficult. So it's going to be simple to achieve, but difficult to actually follow through on, okay? So important one. If you don't have this as a must, then ask yourself, what needs to change? How do I need to reframe this? How do I need to look at this differently to make it a must, okay? And if it isn't, what is a must in your life? Maybe that's what you want to be focusing on and not financial freedom. Because financial freedom is not necessarily something everybody needs to work on, okay? It's generally something that most people would benefit a huge amount from and unlocks a huge amount of people's lives, but not everybody's, okay? So if financial freedom isn't a must for you, what is? Answer that and focus on that in your life. Focus on the things that will create the biggest difference in your life, and you will get a lot more return from the effort and input you put in to life. Make sense? Okay, great. So the third item I wanted to talk through is, well, how do we get there? How do we get to financial freedom? Now, this obviously is a huge topic, but the piece I want to talk about today very briefly is planning, right? It's what are the things that we can do specifically to get there, right? So what we've talked about today is what is financial freedom, okay? So like what is the target we're trying to get to? What is it specifically? So we've got a view of it, we can imagine it, we can see it. The second one then is, well, what are the key questions we need to ask ourselves to make it easier to get there, to be compelled towards getting there and be pulled towards it? And then the third question is, okay, so now we know that, how do we actually get there? And it's all about coming up with a compelling plan, right? Too many people start off with the plan rather than the why and what, okay? So we talked about the why and the what. Now, what is the plan? So the first thing is, the plan is always subservient to what it is that we actually want, right? Because if it isn't, what happens is we'll focus on a plan of action, something that we think will achieve it, achieve what we want. So we want financial freedom, so we've got to do X, Y, and Z, okay? But what happens is, if for whatever reason we can't do X, Y, and Z because we realize we're too old, or we don't have the relevant experience, or we don't have the time to do that, then in our minds we think, well, we can't be financially free, which is completely wrong. There are 1,000,001 ways in which we can achieve financial freedom, all right? Everybody's plan of getting there can be different and all can still work, okay? So long as where we want to get to is clear and consistent, how we get there, okay, can be different, right? So we have one plan of action. If that doesn't work, we can try another way and another way or another way and keep coming up with different ideas to get there. So the first point here is the plan. Come up with a plan. It's absolutely important to come up with a plan, because that is what gives us a view of how to get there and gives us direction and stuff to work on, right? But don't put too much emphasis on a specific approach, okay? Don't get too fixated on one approach. There are many ways in which to do it, okay? Right? So the important thing here is have a plan. Absolutely have a plan. You know where you want to get to? Come up with a plan of how to get there. And we'll go into detail in other videos of different ways we can put a plan together. And I've got a whole methodology around putting a plan together, and we can absolutely do that. But however you come to it, through other research, through other means, through talking to other people, have a plan, okay? And if you don't have one, come up with one. Second point is, don't get too fixated on a specific approach or a specific plan, okay? Allow it to flex. And if you're hitting a brick wall and you're finding yourself not making much progress and you're spending too much time or energy working on something, change what you're doing, right? Change what you're doing, because there are many ways in which to get there, all right? The third thing I want to say around this is have a lot of things that you have at your disposal in which you can use to get there, okay? So once you're clear on where you want to get to, the next thing then is to brainstorm all of the ways in which you think you can get there. Don't get too tired in terms of what you need to do or what you want to do, okay? Just brainstorm all of the things that you could do, right? And through that, because you're not restricted by all of those second guessing, you can come up with a huge list, a massive list, if you really think about it, all right? You will be blown away by how many ideas you can come up with if you come up with it from that perspective. Then when you've got that full list, you can look at the list and you say, well, what do I want to do first? What do I want to have a go on first? What interests me more? What excites me the most? What do I feel is going to be the most effective way of me getting there, right? You have options, right? So you can take 3 things and work on those and start to work on those, start to do those things to start to make progress towards your outcome, i.e. financial freedom. If one of those things doesn't work or is not producing the kind of results you're expecting, you can drop it, pick something else up. That's the beauty of having those options. The other thing is, if you complete one, immediately you can go back and look at what are the other options that you have, okay? So it's all about first coming up with a suite of ideas, so a brainstorming session, and then pick the ones that excite you the most and you feel are going to get you the most effect, the most return, the most impact from the least amount of time and energy, especially on the scarce resources that you have. So if time is a scarce resource for you or money is a scarce resource for you, look at those options and think, which of these options use the least of the resources in my life that are scarce? Because depending on where you are in your life or what situation you're in, what resources that you have at your disposal will be more or less versus somebody else. Make sense? Okay, great. So I'm going to leave it there. Just to quickly recap, the 3 things we talked through are: 1, what is financial freedom for you? 2, what are the key questions that you can ask yourself to get much better quality answers and outcomes from your situation and the progress within your life? And then 3, how do I get there? How do I put together an effective plan and actually action on it to get the best results from my life? I'm James Coursier. This is the Money Paradox podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you soon.